So we continue in Genesis chapter 17. We left off verse 5, and now we're at 6, 7, 8, and 9. The conversation between God and Abram was started in the beginning of Genesis chapter 17. But now he's no longer called Abram. He's called Abraham by God. Let's continue reading. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee in their generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee and to thy seed after thee. Whew. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And God said also to Abraham, and God said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. Whew! That's a lot that God said to Abraham, isn't it? See, from verse 5, the last part, it said this, thy name shall be Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made thee. God uses the past tense. I have made thee. And do you know what? He uses this past tense to say, it's done. In God's eyes, it's a foregone conclusion. Abraham means father of a multitude. Not only would Abraham be the father of multitudes of physical descendants, but also the spiritual father of all who believe in the one true God. Folks, that's you and me. Right? If you believe in the one true God. Now, excuse me for belaboring a point here, but Abram meant exalted father. When for 86 years he was the father of nothing. It would almost be funny if it wasn't so pitiful. Now, being the father of one, he was to be called the father of a multitude? Whoa! The people and slaves and servants of Abraham would definitely think he lost all touch with reality, wouldn't they? Especially when they found out what will be expected of them next. We'll discuss that in the next section. For the fourth time here, God affirmed and reaffirmed the land and seed covenant to Abraham. The previous times were Genesis 12, verse 2, verse 3, verse 7, Genesis 13, 14 to 17, and Genesis 15, verse 5. God used the word covenant 13 times just in chapter 17. To say that a covenant is important to God would definitely be an understatement. Well, in modern English, verses 7 and 8, God said, I will keep my covenant between me and you and your future offspring throughout their generations as an everlasting covenant to be your God and the God of your offspring after you. And to you and your offspring I will give the land where you are a stranger, all the land of Canaan, as an eternal possession, and I will be their God. See, God meant Abraham's descendants to have all of Israel, including the West Bank. Now, in verse 9, however, there appears to be a veiled warning. It's not obvious. In modern English, it says this: "You shall keep my covenant, therefore, because I will," right? You shall keep my covenant, therefore, because I will. That is what God is saying. He's going to keep the covenant. Therefore, you better do it too. You and your descendants after you. Now, I believe that it was better put this way: you better keep my covenant or else. You see, that's what happened to the Israelites later on. God said, you better keep my covenant or else. Now, you need to understand that the word covenant in most other languages, including Hebrew, has the same root meaning as bond. Can you believe that? Bond. To have a bond means to voluntarily bind oneself to something. Folks, when I made a covenant of marriage, I bound myself in a vow between God and me to stay true to my wife. A covenant means that we are bound to that agreement. God here irrevocably bound himself to keep his agreement, expecting Abraham and his offspring to do the same, or there would be some serious consequences. Oh, folks, there's definitely a good reason for God to be feared.